It started with a whisper, a voice no one else could hear, echoing through the ancient stone walls of the abandoned church. The sky was bruised purple, clouds swirling like dark hands clutching at the fading light. Father Michael, a weary priest with a haunted past, stepped cautiously inside, his flashlight cutting through the suffocating darkness. The church had been closed for decades, ever since the horrifying events that led to its curse. Tonight, Michael had one mission, to retrieve the old Bible rumored to contain a demonic seal, a seal that, if broken, could unleash unspeakable evil. The pews were rotting, the air thick with dust and the scent of damp wood. Shadows flickered unnaturally against the cracked stained glass windows, stained not only with age but with something far darker. As Michael moved deeper, the whispers grew louder, unintelligible, yet filled with malice. He gripped the crucifix hanging around his neck tighter, praying silently. Suddenly, a cold gust slammed the heavy wooden doors shut behind him. The flashlight flickered and died. In the pitch black, the whispers turned into guttural chants, echoing from the altar. Heart pounding, Michael found his way by memory, his fingers brushing over ancient carvings telling stories of sin and punishment. At the altar lay the Bible, bound in cracked leather, its pages yellowed and brittle. As Michael reached out, the air grew heavy, and a low growl vibrated through the floor. The moment his fingers touched the book, the church seemed to come alive. The crucifix around his neck burned cold, and a shadow twisted in the corner, no longer human, with glowing red eyes and talons scraping the stone. The demon spoke in a voice like grinding bones, "Why do you disturb my prison, priest?" Michael swallowed his fear. "To end this nightmare. To seal you away forever." The creature laughed, a sound that made the air tremble. "Foolish man. The seal is broken the moment you touch the book. Now, the true test begins." The Bible's pages flipped wildly, revealing a hidden passage that spoke of a sacrificial ritual, a choice between saving one soul or condemning many. Michael realized the chilling truth: the only way to rebind the demon was for a holy man to offer himself willingly. Hesitation flickered in his eyes. Could he sacrifice himself to save a town that no longer remembered the church or its horrors? The demon advanced, and the whispers crescendoed into screams. Time blurred. Michael took a deep breath, gripping the crucifix. He began to chant the ancient prayer of binding, voice steady despite the chaos. As the last words left his lips, a blinding light erupted from the Bible, engulfing the church in divine fire. The demon shrieked, clawing at the light as it was pulled back into the pages. The ground shook, and the stained glass shattered, raining colored shards like blood. When the light faded, Michael was alone, or so it seemed. The Bible lay closed, the seal glowing faintly. But as he turned to leave, a cold whisper brushed his ear: "The seal is never absolute." Outside, the night was silent, but the church's shadow stretched longer, darker. Michael knew the battle was won, but the war was far from over. The line between salvation and damnation had blurred, and in the silence, something waited, watching, patiently ready to be summoned once more. Days passed after that harrowing night, but Michael could find no peace. The church remained sealed behind rusted gates, yet the whispers clung to his mind like a relentless storm. He avoided the town's center, where the old folks spoke in hushed tones of the church's reopening, as if the horrors had never been. The weight of the secret Bible pressed on him, a burden heavier than any he had borne before. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Michael sat alone in the dim light of his modest room, the crucifix resting on the table. His fingers traced its contours absently, mind racing with the knowledge that the demon's warning was no idle threat. He remembered the last words, chilling and persistent: "The seal is never absolute." Determined to understand the true nature of the curse, Michael began researching the church's dark history. He unearthed forgotten records, tales of a cult that had once thrived beneath the town, their rituals inscribed in cryptic languages. The Bible was no ordinary book, it was the key to both binding and unleashing the demon's power. Night after night, the whispers returned, now a fixture of his waking hours. Shadows flickered at the corner of his vision, and the cold touch of unseen fingers grazed his skin. Yet, Michael stood firm. The prayer of binding had weakened the demon, but it had not destroyed it. Somewhere, the creature waited for a crack, a moment of doubt, to escape once more. One storm-lashed night, as lightning tore the sky apart, Michael felt an urgent pull back to the church. Against all reason, he returned to the ruins, the Bible wrapped in cloth beneath his coat. The gates groaned as he pushed them open, the scent of decay thick in the air. The altar remained, scarred by the battle, the shattered glass glittering like malevolent stars. As he approached, the whispers surged into a cacophony of voices, pleading, threatening, screaming. The demon's presence was palpable, a dark pulse beneath the stones. Michael raised the Bible, the seal glowing faintly in the storm's flicker. He began the prayer anew, voice unwavering despite the tempest. The ground trembled, the air thickened, and for a moment, the church seemed to breathe. The demon's form emerged again, more spectral, its eyes blazing with fury and desperation. "You cannot bind what is eternal," it hissed. Michael met the gaze with unyielding faith. "Evil may endure, but so does hope." With a final recitation, the seal flared, and the demon recoiled, vanishing into the pages once more. The storm outside abated, leaving a heavy silence in its wake. Michael knew the battle was far from over. The seal was fragile, and the price of freedom was eternal vigilance. Yet, within him burned a renewed purpose, to guard against the darkness, to face the whispers, and to keep the ancient evil imprisoned, no matter the cost. The church stood silent once again, but the shadows whispered still, waiting for the day when the seal might break, and the nightmare begin anew.